Greetings, all my Remans and Romulans. This is the V'ger Network. Thanks for stopping by. If you'd like to make a comment or start a conversation about something you hear on today's episode or any of the other episodes, feel free to leave a comment, or you can email us directly at thevjernetwork@gmail.com. Now, for today's episode, we're going to talk about Star Trek Nemesis. This was the final installment featuring the Next Generation cast in a feature-length movie. This movie pits Picard literally against himself. He's called to Romulus on a diplomatic mission. The Romulans have been the antagonists of the Federation for centuries. And as the movie evolves, we kind of learn that everything is put into place to get Captain Picard from the USS Enterprise to Romulus to meet his clone, Shinzon, who has risen to power as the leader of the Romulan people. It's fascinating because, number one, he's human. Number two, he's a clone. And number three, he actually grew up on a penal colony, the Romulan Moon. And he was a mining slave for most of his life. Now, as the story goes on, Shinzon and Picard finally meet. They exchange pleasantries, and it's all fascinating. Picard looks at Shinzon, and he talks about how it looks like he's looking at himself. And throughout the movie, both of them say to one another at different points how they both have the same Picard blood running through their veins. And Picard notices the differences in the choices that Shinzon has made. And Shinzon fights back. It's like, well, if you were in my place, you would have made the same choices. So there's literally the two versions of him fighting against. One that grew up in a very harsh environment and had to make certain choices just to survive. And another which grew up in basically the best of circumstances. He was the first of his family to actually leave Earth, to actually leave his homeland, to go become an explorer. And they both shared that same dream of looking up at the stars and wondering what else was out there. It was really a fascinating dynamic to the movie, just seeing these two people who were literally the same person, what they had to say to one another back and forth. Picard tried to explain to Shinzon, look, you have the opportunity to change now. You have the opportunity to put what you've done behind you and be more, to be better than what you have been. And Shinzon refuses. He has war on his mind and refuses to change the way he's moving about. It's a very interesting concept. And now, it's not one that's foreign to Star Trek by any means. In the original series, Captain Kirk actually fights a clone of himself, an evil clone. In another episode, there's a transporter accident, and he is split into two personalities. He is the good Kirk and the bad Kirk. The bad Kirk is impulsive and angry, and the good Kirk is ineffective. He can't make decisions quickly. He's not impulsive. They're complete opposites. And they actually fight for control over which one is going to live because they can't both survive. It is a very fascinating thing to think about, right? Being able to separate ourselves when we're having to make a decision. Have you ever thought about that? Has it ever crossed your mind? Who is it that you talk to when you're trying to make a decision, when you're trying to go down one path or the other, to do right or to do wrong, to make this decision which is going to be better for me in the long run, or make a decision that's going to be better for my friends and family in the long run? It's pretty fascinating. Now, interesting enough, it is talked about in the Bible just a little bit. Paul talks about, in one passage, about how he does the things that he hates and he doesn't do the things that he loves. Now, there's some controversy about that verse because some people speculate whether it's before or after his conversion, whether he still struggled with some sort of particular sin or not. But nonetheless, there was or is an internal struggle that Paul was dealing with or had dealt with. He could relate to that. Now, something you may not know, and it was presented to me very recently, and I thought it was a fascinating concept. Jesus struggled with that same thing, an internal struggle. When he's in the garden, the night that he's betrayed, and he has his disciples pray with him off to the side, and he goes into the garden, he kneels down, and he is so stressed, he is so distraught about what's to happen. Now, keeping in mind, according to the Bible, Jesus knows exactly what is going to happen to him. He's talked about it repeatedly to his disciples. He's said that this was the thing that he has most passionately moving towards. Here it's come to that moment. And he is so stressed because he knows about the crucifixion and what's going to happen. And he's praying to God, he's praying to his Father. And he says, if I can get out of this, let it happen. But not my will, but your will be done. It is kind of interesting. I mean, here he is. He has the power, at least according to the Bible. And if we can believe the temptation, when Satan tells him, your Father won't allow you to be hurt. If you were to jump from this cliff, he would send thousands of angels to keep it so you wouldn't even stub your toe. And Jesus had the ability to command legions of angels. And at that moment in the garden, he could have done just that. When he was arrested, when he was betrayed, he could have done just that. And my friend Chris pointed that out to me. Is like that there had to have been some sort of internal struggle, at least, don't you think? Because he had that power, he had that ability to call out to his Father, or he could do the thing that was going to be better for the whole rest of humanity, for the whole entire world, and save all of us instead of just himself. It's something to consider, especially when you might be going through a struggle of some particular type. It wasn't just you. You're not the only one who's gone through it. We all face it, and it is difficult. And that's why we have friends. That's why we have people in a church or a Bible study that we can go to. Take advantage of that. If you're having a struggle, if you're having a decision that's just weighing on you, take advantage of calling someone, talking it over, thinking it through. It's never a bad thing to get some advice from a really close friend who loves you and cares about you and what's going to happen to you. Heck, if you need to, you can give us a call, send us an email, respond to this podcast. I want to give a special thanks out to Miriam from Fancy Face Baltimore for our awesome new backdrop, Forbidden Planet, one of my super all-time nostalgic nerdy movies. I love that movie. Thank you so much, Miriam, for that. You may remember her from the Failure at the Cave video. She was great and hilarious. So thank you for that. Guys, have a great weekend. J-O-Y.